Hey, welcome back to Maple Grove Voices Inside the Huddle podcast. It is presented by Twin Cities Orthopedics. I want to take this opportunity to thank our title sponsor for the podcast, Twin Cities Orthopedics, brand new on the show, brand new on the website. And thank you for supporting all the activities and athletics. They're going to be our sports sponsor all year long and title sponsor of this podcast, Inside the Huddle. Thanks to all the fine folks at Twin Cities Orthopedics. Got a great show for you today. A little bit later on in the program, Ben LeVahn, girls head soccer coach, is going to join us. He's going to talk in his 16th season about the expectations, about the opportunity that they have. Past 2 years, they've had the opportunity to go to state. Hasn't gone their way, but they keep inching closer. Will this be the year they finally knock the door down? He also gives his thoughts on who he feels is going to have a breakout season for the Crimson. And, of course, the greatness that is Meredith Hawkinson. She is amazing. She's the returning Gatorade Player of the Year in Minnesota. She was a USA Today All-American selection. She's an amazing, amazing soccer player. If you get the chance this fall, head out and catch a Maple Grove girls soccer contest. And of course, the expectations that they have on their back. But first, before we do that, let's hit the scoreboard. Thursday afternoon, the aforementioned Crimson girls soccer team, they picked up their first win of the season with a 4-0 shutout win over Champlain Park. Mia Omar, Shelby Handberg, Emma Fournier, and Meredith Hawkinson all scored for the Crimson. Sarah Cortez solid in net. She earned the shutout and made a great save at the end of the second half to preserve the shutout. Heritage Christian opened their season with a 1-0 loss to Robbinsdale Armstrong. Jordan Sadler, the only tally for the Falcons. Heritage Christian starts the season 0-1. Osseo in girls tennis defeated Irondale 4-3, picked up their first win of the season. The young Orioles are playing without a senior in the lineup and have done very, very well in the early part of the season. Earlier this week, they fell to Maple Grove. I had a chance to catch that tennis match. The Crimson also playing without a senior in the lineup. We've got an article up on Maple Grove Voice about the youth movement in girls tennis in both programs. Check that out. When we return, we're talking Crimson girls soccer. Maple Grove, they've lost to Centennial the past two section championship games. Is this the year they finally break through and get to state? Ben LeVahn, head coach, has all the answers. We'll talk to him about that and so much more. This is Maple Grove Voices Inside the Huddle podcast, presented by Twin Cities Orthopedics. First, an Inside the Huddle rewind. Maple Grove Crimson head football coach Matt Lombardi had back surgery a week in front of their season opener against Osseo. He gave his thoughts in episode 2, which is available in our archives.
Herniated a disc in my back. I've had back issues, but not bad. Just things you'd be sore and have to stretch and this and that. Well, I went to my parents' house and played a wiffle ball game, and that was the end of me. I rounded third, and I thought I was going to score at home, and my body said, "You're not scoring." And since then, I've had a slip disc, and it's herniated bad, and it's extruded outside into my nerves, so my left side's a little bit numb. So I think it's going to be an outpatient surgery, so I'm going to be fine, but it's something we got to deal with.
That was head football coach Matt Lombardi. Welcome back to Maple Grove Voices Inside the Huddle, presented by Twin Cities Orthopedics. The Maple Grove Crimson girls soccer team has come so close in recent years to a state berth. Past 2 seasons, the Crimson have lost in the section title game to Centennial. With a big part of their offensive attack returning, this could be the year. We sat down with head coach Ben LeVahn and started a conversation asking about the tryout process.
Dealt with big numbers, which is a good problem to have. We felt like this year when we got done that we had players that if you look at a bell curve, you got your top and your bottom. What is now kind of at the bottom end of our bell curve was the middle of our bell curve years ago, which is a problem when you're doing talent evaluation, but it's a good problem to have. I'd rather have that where you've got a plethora of solid kids, but as far as difficulties, other than a little bit of weather, I'll handle that difficulty.
The process is always interesting, and again, no matter what kind of sport you're talking about, it's you get a chance to, in a short amount of time, see a whole bunch of kids work through drills and things. And how does that process work? Obviously, you've done this a while, so you kind of know what you're looking for as you're going along.
Yeah, and we try and give the kids a good chance to, show what they can do. Multiple coaches evaluating, seeing them. Then, in soccer, everything breaks down into different size numbers: 1v1, 2v2, and so we try and give all those typical breakdowns so kids can show where they excel. There's, we do a little bit more on the higher end of how many hours they get evaluated, but we're continuing to look to try and make things easier. We want to try and be able to give kids feedback at the end. You want to, when that question comes of, why, I feel that it's our duty to be able to give strengths and weaknesses, and that's if I'm evaluating talent, I should be able to evaluate those separate things.
And it's kind of fun to watch those kids from their own growth process as they continue to grow as soccer players year over year. That's kind of got to be fun as you've grown this program to kind of where it is now. What are the biggest differences you've seen through the years here at Maple Grove?
In soccer, everything when you talk about it is foot skills. When the ball comes to you, what do you do with it? Can you control things out of the air? Can you control passes too hard? In general, we play most of our games up on the turf, but most kids are playing on the grass. Grass surfaces in Minnesota are not consistent, so it's can you deal with the variables that come with you? And we've seen just the general level of everybody, their ability to do that increase. The technique of kids, especially at the higher ends, has really increased where as far as some strategies, there was years ago where there were things that if I was coaching boys, because of just simple leg strength, that would be a tactical decision that used to not be it. But now with the girls, we can do some of those things that maybe even 5 years ago we weren't able to do.
It's kind of fun to watch that growth process, right?
It is, and we see, it's fun to see these kids come in as, because we get some 7th graders, but we're, the 8th graders that come in, and you're like, okay, that's a kid that we're going to see in a few years, and be excited to see how they come along. We have them for roughly 2 months, and then sometimes we don't get to see them for a while. So for many kids, when they come in the spring, or when they come in the fall, it's a surprise on the incremental leaps they've made as players.
And from that, to pigtail off of that a little bit, from a skill development perspective, how much of that is club based? I mean, because they're playing 12 months out of the year now.
What the club is doing has changed what I focus on and do in the off season. It's changed what I do in the preseason, like in our preseason, where our preseason is pretty short. We open up a week from today, right. And so we didn't hit the grass today, so we'll have really 4 practices before our first game. I used to heavily do fitness in there. Right now I'm getting to the point where our kids, because they're playing year round, they're coming in relatively good shape. I don't focus on that as much. And the club is really doing a good job of focusing on that. The abundance of indoor facilities now. When I was growing up out here in Minnesota, it was corner kick out in Maplewood.
Right.
And now we're getting to the point where you've got maximum 10-minute drive, and you can find somewhere where you can play indoors.
Okay, let's get to the conversation that everybody wants to have. And expectations are a fun thing to talk about, but at the same time, when you're talking to your kids, I know how it works. That we got to talk about Champlin, and then we got to and so it's a step-by-step process. But let's rewind to last year in the section championship against Centennial. You're up by a goal with 7 minutes left, and they come back and get you in overtime, and then ultimately Centennial wins the whole thing. So it's kind of one of those, I'm sure it's bittersweet for you, but is it almost one of those conversations with the kids that, look, we knocked on the door, now we got to take that next step and get through it?
This conversation we even had this morning was, when we tell you you're a championship caliber team, we mean it. Look at where we were, and what that doesn't mean that we necessarily would have done what Centennial did, but that's definitely the capabilities that we had with that team. We aren't coming in saying, "Hey, we're going to win the state championship," but we can have the conversation of that's an aim that we should, that we can realistically have. And first step in that, like you said, is Champlin. The biggest game of the year is the next one,
right? And
trying to manage that long-term objective with the short-term goals. And
do the seniors get it though? Do they understand the opportunity that they have? Are they? I would assume they're probably hungry after kind of losing a game like that where you really felt like you had them.
And especially our junior and senior class, it's a large group, and they've been with us for at least 2 years. 2 of the captains, this is their 4th year. We've had 2 section losses to Centennial where we were right there in things, and they feel like we've been too close. And there's games where you're close and you can walk away and go, you know what, that team was better today. And so we haven't walked away feeling like that. And so this group is hopefully a little bit different mentality. And so far they've shown that, just the general conversations you have, the intentionality they have, it's seeming like they've got that.
Do you kind of look at that as we've built this up the right way? You know what I mean? Because sometimes you go through it and you have a couple special classes that come through and they're good and they get you there and you may make a run, but then, underneath it, there's nothing left. I mean, when I look at your program, it's kind of one of those, you kind of have pieces at every level, which doesn't happen a lot, but that's how you build a program, is that you're just constantly, you never have to reload, you never have to rebuild, you're just always reloading.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, that goes back to the off-season work that the kids are doing, that, our general levels, if our lower level teams are finishing top third of the conference every year, and that's even where some of the other programs are putting, they might be putting all their best players at the B squad level, and we've got our kids, mix and match between. It's a challenge, but it's one that we're willing to roll on.
How special is Meredith? I mean, she's Gatorade Player of the Year last year. She comes back for you as a senior this year. I know, you're not going to build that off of one player, but she's pretty good. She is, and if you were going to build off one player, she's playing in the spot on the field that allows her. We're trying to find. We're not intentionally doing it, but we're putting her in a spot where she can find the ball and the ball can find her as often as possible. A friend of mine that was coaching and came to our section final that had coached against her 7-8 times, watched the game and said, I didn't realize how good she really was, because he hadn't watched one of our games as a spectator, and realizing all the little things that she does that a lot of times you don't expect kids that get accolades like she does to do. I mean, she's one. We have a hardworking team, but she's a kid that stays after and does wind sprints. She defends as hard, if not, she's one of our strongest defenders. She does those things that kids that have those awards aren't always recognized for having it in their personality. Strength of this team, as you look at it right now, would be what? It's going to be our offense and our ability to hang on the ball. We're gonna set it up where we can hang on to the ball and move it around. Still, we graduated 4 and we lost a few that kind of chose to go different directions, but it's really going to be our kids that were our big impact players on offense are back this year, and we're hoping that the people that are coming in and filling those new roles, right now we're not putting too much weight on them. We're saying, you do what you can do, and let the other kids that have done it do their stuff. Sitting here at the end of August, and with the ability to change this as it goes along, and obviously the results will prove themselves out, give me a name or two that we might not expect, that by the end of this, when we have a conversation down the road, we'll look at it and say, either you saw that coming or I didn't. Any surprises? The one that we as a coach see that doesn't always come up on a stat sheet, and she had good stats, but junior Mia Omar, she plays out on the outside, and so that position doesn't always show how much it impacts the game. But she's a player that has always and still is continuing to figure out how good she can be. It's a player that's not on. We were out at Blaine, and within the first 4 minutes of the game, the Blaine coach changed their entire lineup to account for the way she was destroying them, so they changed their entire formation to one they hadn't even worked on, and so that's what she can do. And I think, and she had the second goal in that Centennial game. That's those highlight ones for her. That's the stuff she can do, and so that's the one that I'd love to see her continue to take on that I can be the best mentality. Yep. And it's your job to try and stop me. She's committed to Florida Atlantic, right? Or yep. Florida International. Yeah, and that's, you have a couple D1 kids on the team, and that obviously helps out. When you closed the eyes last night after the whole process was done, how excited are you? In comparison to where you've been other seasons with the opportunity that we have? Where I really start to get excited is we go up to Duluth this weekend, and then we've got some scrimmages with some good teams on Tuesday. On Tuesday is where we really start coaching. We get back on Monday, and we're still working on individual things and who can play where and who connects well together. When we get to that point, all of a sudden we start juicing up. It's things are a little bit real. We start coaching in a different way than we were over the weekend, because this weekend we're not going to care about how organized our
team is in general. We haven't practiced anything, so that's not going to be a coaching point. We're really going to get into things on Tuesday, so that's where we really start getting excited and going, okay, this is what we're capable of doing.
It's going to be a fun season. We're looking forward to following it. Good luck, and keep everybody healthy.
Hey, that's a good goal. Thanks.
Absolutely. Well done. Thank you, sir. Big thanks to Coach LeVahn, and good luck to the Crimson as they work their way through the 2017 season. And thank you for listening to Maple Grove Voices Inside the Huddle. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, Twin Cities Orthopedics. Coming up on episode 4 of Inside the Huddle, we're talking Crimson Volleyball with head coach Sean Haugen.
I'm very excited for what's going to be going on this year, from our freshmen all the way up to our varsity with what we've got coming in. We have a lot of kids that are playing club season. So rest is the big thing. I kind of talked about, time off and everything, and I even kind of myself in this example. I said, there's 52 weeks in a year. I had 3 weeks off in the last year from not having to do anything. So that's the big one with rest. I usually tell all of the returning varsity players that, it's open gyms and captains. I don't want to see you sometimes until then. Heal your body, but very happy. First practice is today. Everybody's kind of going and figuring each other out and getting used to each other. We have our first scrimmage on Saturday. But excited, top to bottom, with what the program will probably do this year.
That's next time on Maple Grove Voices Inside the Huddle, presented by Twin Cities Orthopedics.